Okay, so hello to everybody who just arrived.
Hello.
Okay, so today we're going to finish Lead with Your Heart, but before we get started, I'd like to know what happened in chapters 12, 13, and 14. What's the emotional flu?
Who wants to describe that nice and loud?
Connor. Really loud. Remember to face back here.
I don't know what the emotional flu is, but...
Well, that's the question.
That was a question, so just wait.
Emily?
It's like when somebody's scared or getting scared and then they tell somebody else and then ready.
Right, so who caught the emotional flu in the book?
Miss Crutch?
Yeah, Mrs. Crutch. And do you think that she's really a mean lady?
Yeah. No. Yes. Yes.
Well, sometimes people act really mean when they're scared, don't they? Yeah, yeah. So what happened after Mrs. Crutch got the emotional flu? What is the solution?
Connor?
They wanted to, they went everywhere and then they wanted people to sign a paper to say that they both could live in the city.
Right, so it's kind of like a campaign, huh? What's the campaign called?
Monica?
Sit for a pig.
Yay! Okay, so there are four parts to sit for a pit. Does anybody remember what they are? Number one is share, right? Then sign, then and then
Fly and stop. What?
what I tried to show you is meet, greet, and repeat. Yeah, because why do we need to repeat?
Why would you need to repeat? Meet, greet, and repeat. Why would that be important?
Why do you need to repeat?
People and not be afraid.
Jolly, why do you need to repeat?
Because so that way, the dog knows they're like safe.
Right, it's kind of like the dogs. People need to hear things many times so that they remember, right? So if people are really afraid, they might forget, and they need to be reminded that pit bulls are good dogs. Yeah? Make sense? All right. So are we ready to do chapter 15 and 16, the very last ones?
Yes.
Okay, so stretch. Good God. I want you guys to get all the wiggles out. Yeah.
Fine.
That's my favorite part.
Okay, if you're holding the book, try to hold it so at least one or two other people can see it.
Yeah, let everybody watch while we read, okay? And what happens when you hear words in groups of three? What happens when you hear words in groups of three?
What happens when it's three times? Austin?
Like you say it again.
Say it again.
Repeat. Repeat seems to be our theme for today. Okay, here we go. You ready? Chapter 15. Take your medicine. The night of the city council meeting, Mom and Marshall put me in the shower, washed me all over with stinky soap, and clipped my nails. Then they used the red plastic dryer with his long pointed nose and horrible hot breath to dry me off. I was very upset by all this until Mom dangled some cheese in front of my nose. Poor Lance. Here's some cheese to make you feel better, she said. Just after the sun went down, Miss Janiyah picked us all up in the CritterKin van. The drive to the center of town was very quiet until we turned onto the street beside the city hall. Then there were lots of cars and people walking on the sidewalks. Looks like we're going to have a full house tonight, said Miss Janiyah. After we found a place to park, we walked to the city hall. The entrance was being guarded by 2 police officers. Lucky for us, one of them was a nice policewoman from the dog park. She recognized me right away and shook my paw. "Nice to see you again, Lance," she said. "Go right on in. All your buddies are already here." City Hall is a big room with a lot of chairs facing a stage. The chairs are divided down the middle by a strip of red carpet. We walked down the carpet to the front seats where all the kids and dogs from CritterKin class were waiting. While Miss Janiyah said hi to the kids, I said hello to Mortimer and all the dogs. "It is exciting, is it not?" Mortimer snuffled in his French accent. "Perhaps we shall become the big stars tonight." "Perhaps," I said, lying down beside him. "But something tells me this is going to be a long night." The city council had a lot of work to do. There was a call to order, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, roll call, and reports from the mayor, city attorney, and city clerk. I thought Mrs. Crutch's law would be the first thing they discussed. They talked about parking tickets, traffic signs, and building permits. By the time Mrs. Crutch finally began describing her anti-pit bull bill, I was half asleep. "Wake up, my friend," said Mortimer, nudging me with his nose. "Mrs. Crutch, she is talking." Mrs. Crutch talked for a long time about the dangers of owning pit bulls. He showed pictures of people with dog bites and talked about how pit bulls cannot be trusted. When she was finished, people all around us were muttering and sounding upset. Then it was Ms. Janiyah's turn. Ms. Janiyah stood up in her overalls and work boots, put her hands in her pockets, and smiled. "My name is Ms. Janiyah, and I was a teacher in this town for more than 30 years. Now I own a small dog training school called CritterKin, where I teach people and dogs how to live happily together. But would it surprise you to learn that most people need more training than their dogs?" Everyone in the room laughed, and I could feel some of the tension leaving. "Good, good, good," I woofed. "Miss Janiyah is doing good." "The reason is simple," Miss Janiyah continued. "People are complicated. Dogs are not. How many of you have or know dogs? Raise your hands, please." Almost every hand was raised, including Mrs. Crutch's. "Can some of you describe your dogs?" "Playful," shouted one man. "Loving," said another. "Energetic," called out a third. Now the words started coming fast. Mischievous, silly, eager to please, beggar, friendly, lazy, bed hog, hyper, spoiled, naughty, goofball, lapdog, strong, big baby, food thief, bull in a china shop, loud, protective, funny, snuggle bunny, chowhound. The list got longer and longer until Miss Janiyah said, "Okay, okay, thank you." How many of you have heard anything really negative about dogs? No one raised their hand, and the room was very quiet. That's because dogs are basically good. They love people. They want to please, and if we teach them what we want, they'll do it. How many of you can say that about other people? Everyone laughed again, but Mrs. Crutch stopped them. "That doesn't change the fact that pit bulls are dangerous," she said loudly. "Oh, but it does," said Miss Janiyah. "Pit bulls are dogs. The only way a pit bull or any other dog becomes dangerous is if a person teaches it to be." "I know from personal experience that pit bulls are dangerous," said Mrs. Crutch. "A pit bull bit my brother." "I'm sorry you had a bad experience with one dog," Ms. Janiyah said, "but imagine how you'd feel if you were asked to leave town because someone in your family did something wrong." "We're talking about the safety of our children," Mrs. Crutch said. "I think we're talking about fear," said Ms. Janiyah. "In my CritterKin Kids class, we call fear the emotional flu. With your permission, Mayor Cummings, I'd like the kids from my class to show you their cure for flu." "This doesn't have anything to do with my bill," said Mrs. Crutch. But the mayor interrupted her. "It has everything to do with it, Dorothea. Please sit down," he said. "Go on, Ms. Janiyah." Ms. Janiyah turned to the kids. "Let's do it, guys," she grinned. The kids gathered our leashes and led us up onto the stage in front of the city council. When we were all lined up in a row, Ms. Janiyah nodded to Mackenzie. Mackenzie stepped forward with Mortimer beside her. My name is Mackenzie, and this is Mortimer. We're in Miss Janiyah's CritterKin class. We study a lot of things about dogs. For example, body language and health care. But the most important thing we learned were the 3 R's. Mackenzie stepped back into line, and Ms. Janiyah nodded at Danny. My name is Danny, and this is my dog, Scooter. Ms. Janiyah called him a problem child because he barked and jumped on people. Scooter needed to learn the first R, respect. But I needed to learn the second R, repeat. Danny stepped back into line, and Ms. Janiyah nodded at Kimmy. My name is Kimmy, and this is Lucky. Lucky is a good dog, but he's kind of like Scooter. He forgets things a lot. I have to be patient and use the second R, repeat, so he won't forget. Teaching Lucky taught me to be patient with people, too. He's a good teacher. Kimmy stepped back into the line, and Ms. Janiyah nodded at Brendan. My name is Brendan, and this is Baby Girl. My family adopted her from the shelter. She was scared of everything, so we brought her to CritterKin class. Ms. Janiyah taught us the third R, reward. We started rewarding Baby Girl for taking baby steps. That means trying new things, even if you're scared. It's a good lesson for everybody. Brendan stepped back into line, and Ms. Janiyah nodded at Paul. My name is Paul, and this is my dog, Hipster. Even though Hipster looks big and scary, we call him the gentle giant. If you rub his belly or scratch his back, he groans. Want to see? Paul bent down and rubbed Hipster's back. Hipster immediately closed his eyes and started to make happy sounds deep in his throat. Oh, 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 that's good. Everybody laughed. Hipster taught me to never judge a book by its cover. Paul stepped back into line, and Ms. Janiyah nodded at Rennie. Rennie and I stepped forward, and I sat down on her right side. My name is Rennie, said Rennie in a small, unsteady voice. I could feel how scared she was and gently nuzzled her hand. Take a deep breath and try again, Rennie, Ms. Janiyah said. You can do this. Rennie cleared her throat and started again. My name is Rennie, and this is my best friend, Lance. He's a pit bull. Before we met Mrs. Crutch, I never heard of pit bulls. Lance was just Lance. The worst thing he ever did was bury my shoes. Now Mrs. Crutch says he's dangerous, but how does she know? She's never met him. Rennie stepped back into line, and Ms. Janiyah faced the audience again. That's just about it, except for 2 things. Some of you may have heard of our Sit for a Pit campaign. It's an idea the kids came up with to get people to sign our petition and learn about pit bulls. The petition is simple. It says, we do not support a law that would keep pit bulls out of our city. We believe each dog deserves to be judged based on its individual personality and behavior. I have the petitions here, and I'm proud to say there are more than 2,000 signatures. Ms. Janiyah handed the folder with the signed petitions to Mayor Cummings. Ms. Janiyah turned to the City Council. The last thing I'd like to suggest is that Mrs. Crutch take some medicine for her emotional flu. What do you have in mind? The mayor asked with a smile. It was actually Rennie's idea, Ms. Janiyah said, so I'll let her tell you. Beside me, Rennie swallowed hard and screwed up her courage. I knew she was as scared of Mrs. Crutch as Mrs. Crutch was of me. Mrs. Crutch, I want you to meet Lance and shake his paw. Absolutely not, Mrs. Crutch said, turning red. That dog is filthy. He's not, Rennie said. We gave him a bath today. Oh, go on. What can it hurt? Someone called from the audience. Yeah, what can it hurt? Said another one of the council members. You can do it, Mom, Sheila Crutch yelled. She was sitting with her friends near the back of the room. What do you say, Dorothea? The mayor asked. The dog seems harmless enough. In the end, it was Rennie who found the courage to take the first baby step. First, she turned to me and firmly said, "Stay," holding the palm of her hand directly in front of her face as she'd been taught. Next, she took a deep breath and walked over to the city council table. "Hello, Mrs. Crutch," she said, holding out her hand. "My name is Rennie Boehner. I don't believe we've met." Mrs. Crutch looked a little shocked, but after a second she shook Rennie's hand. "How do you do, Rennie?" she said. "It's nice to meet you." "I'd like to introduce you to my best friend, Lance," Rennie said. "He's very friendly and knows how to shake." I'd rather not, if you don't mind," Mrs. Crutch said. I'm not fond of dogs." That's when Rennie did the bravest thing of all. She leaned across the table and whispered in Mrs. Crutch's ear, "It's okay to be scared. I was scared too, but you can do it. I know you can." Mrs. Crutch jerked her head back and stared at Rennie. Then she swallowed hard, got to her feet, and walked slowly around to the front of the table. Rennie took her hand and guided her over to where I was sitting. "Mrs. Crutch, I'd like you to meet my best friend, Lance. Lance, I'd like you to meet my new friend, Mrs. Crutch." I was sitting as still as I could so I wouldn't scare Mrs. Crutch, but I wagged my tail to show I was friendly. "See, he's happy to meet you," Rennie said. "He's wagging his tail." Yes, I see," gulped Mrs. Crutch. "Now you can shake his paw," Rennie said. "Oh, I don't think I can," said Mrs. Crutch. "It's okay, let me show you," Rennie said. She bent down, held out her hand, and said, "Shake, Lance." I immediately put my paw in her hand, and she gave it a good hard shake. "Now you try." When Mrs. Crutch didn't move, Rennie gently took her hand and held it out to me. "Shake, Lance," she said. I put my paw on Mrs. Crutch's hand. She was so scared she was shaking. "Wow, wow, wow."
Wow, wow, wow.
I thought as I waited for her to shake. Gently, Rennie closed Mrs. Crutch's fingers around my paw and lifted her arm up and down. "See, you did it," Rennie said with a big smile. Behind us, the audience started to applaud and whistle. Mrs. Crutch released my paw, stood up, and gave everyone a weak smile. And that, my friends, is the story of how I became a super smart, stunningly handsome, extra special pit bull, and how Mrs. Crutch learned to take her medicine. So there's one more chapter, and it's called an epilogue. Does anybody know what an epilogue is?
Yeah. Christian?
It's sort of like the end stuff, it's sort of like it's like what happens at the very end of the story, like afterwards, like.
Right.
That's
It's
like
kind of stuff you want to know what happened after, even though it's not part of the story. Okay, so here's the epilogue. You ready? This is Lance again, and he says, "I am happy to report that everyone on the city council, including Mrs. Crutch, voted to allow pit bulls to stay in town. Thanks to all the hard work we did on Sit for a Pit, I became a kind of celebrity. That means a lot of people want to meet and shake my paw. Being a celebrity is good because it gives me a chance to smile, wag my tail, and show everyone that pit bulls are good dogs. It also means that the people who use pit bulls for fighting are getting caught and punished more often. Like Mr. Naya says, it's up to everyone to teach people to be kind and help animals who can't help themselves. Ms. Janaya is very wise, but I still think she's a dog in disguise. The best news of all is that I have my forever family and home. Mom forgave me for burying Rennie's shoes and never talks about giving me away. I do my best not to get in trouble, but sometimes I just can't help it. The other day I chased a skunk under our house and the nasty creature sprayed me with its stink. Instead of being mad at the skunk, everybody yelled at me and made me sleep outside. When I complained to Mortimer, all he said was, "People are still peculiar, mon ami, and you smell very, very bad." Okay, what do you think?
Good.
Thank you. So, our book reviewers will be doing reviews of this book, okay? So everybody get ready. And today I want to talk about editorials. Does anybody remember what an editorial is?
Hopefully the people that are doing editorials will remember, but what is an editorial? Ian?
It's like the whoever, like, it's like the dog's point of view, like you're writing about the dog, like what it's saying, and not like it's like what he's saying, the person's saying.
It's like
He was saying, well, one thing that they've done is sort of write how the dog feels from the dog's point of view.
Oh, yeah. Well, an editorial is usually an opinion. Okay? So you can have an opinion about something, but it's not necessarily factual. So let me give you an example, okay? You tell me if this is an opinion or a fact, okay? You ready? Chihuahuas are small dogs with pointy ears. Is that a fact or an opinion? Yeah. Chihuahuas are small and they have pointy ears. That's a fact. How about this? All Chihuahuas like to eat carrots. Is that a fact or an opinion? Yeah, it's an opinion. Now maybe you could go to a veterinarian and say and get information that says all Chihuahuas like to eat carrots, but I kind of doubt it. It's just an opinion, okay? So we are going to do 2 editorials, and we're going to help our editorial writers today. So everybody, one side is going to take pro opinion, and one side is going to take an against opinion, and that means one is for and one is against. Does that make sense? Okay, so our topic, can you guys guess what the topic is?
Who thinks they know what the topic might be that we could be for or against? Aubrey?
Yeah, you're so smart. Yeah, so our idea is, this is what we want to defend or fight against. There should be laws against owning pit bulls because they're dangerous dogs. That's what we're gonna argue for and against. Okay, so half of the, let's divide into two groups.
Okay, so we're just going to kind of do the front of the room and the back of the room. So I'm going to draw a line here, okay? So you guys are on one side. You guys are towards the back. Monique, let's put you in the back. Aiden, Emily, you're in the back side. And the rest of you are in the front side, okay? You don't have to move, but you guys are going to be one group, and you guys are going to be the other group. Okay?
Okay, so the front group is going to defend this. In other words, they are going to say, yes, pit bulls are dangerous dogs, and there should be laws against them. Okay? And the back group is going to fight that opinion. We're going to say pit bulls are okay dogs and there shouldn't be laws against them. Does that make sense? Okay. So the way to get the information you need, because you need facts to support your opinion, is to do some research. We can't do the research right now, but we can write down the ideas and our beliefs that we're going to write about, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so the front group, you are going to defend the position. Yes, pit bulls are bad dogs and they're dangerous and we should have laws against them, okay? So which teacher is going to work with that group?
Mrs. Carlson.
Okay, so she is going to take notes for you. She's going to write down your opinions and your ideas about how to defend this. Remember, for right now, you believe, yes, pit bulls are dangerous dogs, and we should have laws against them. Okay, back room. Who's going to help the back room?
Mrs. Howard.
Okay, so now you guys think that is not true, and that they're good dogs, and we should not have laws against them. Okay, so you guys should face each other so you can hear each other, and let's talk about it. Okay. Take down notes.
Why would they think that pillows are dangerous? What would be some reasons why people think pillows are dangerous?
Okay, so what's our time? Raise your hand so I can hear you. Okay, pistols are not dangerous. Pistols are good pets and not dangerous. What else? Okay, so who has a reason or something that we can use to defend our position? Antoine?
If we're not dangerous, the person do a lot of things.
And what kind of thing?
They want to show you they have a big heart.
Okay, they might show you their personality and they might have a big heart.
So, it could be other dogs, it could be people, right? If they are trained to do that,
And they should for that.
Alright, Hannah.
Sophia?
Okay, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Go. Did you hear what Tanner said? Okay, Tanner, say that again.
Pickles are just like any other dogs, it depends how you treat it.
Okay, so we say that they're not dangerous because being dangerous depends on how they're treated and how they're trained, not what kind of dog they are.
Hi, Marty.
They had him
Keep
on,
working. I'm watching you.
To leave with your heart.
checking up on you.
All pickles. Besides that they were just mean and violent, there was something about them that you talked about. It went along with that.
Okay.
If they looked big and mean, so maybe size makes people think that they are dangerous or intimidating. You don't word intimidating.
Okay, maybe if any dog bites, if the dog bites, maybe they're just
That
trying
when
to
you look at something, it makes you afraid, right?
It doesn't say. It's like
So maybe if you look intimidating.
Okay, there was something from
What are
the book
some things
that started with don't judge.
that can
Don't
make
judge by
them
your
dangerous?
What do you remember?
Rudy?
Great. Okay, don't judge a book by its cover.
No.
What does that mean? That only
Focusing on
applies
why
to books?
pimples are dangerous.
And the
What
cover
can
of
people
books,
do
whether you
to
like the
make
picture on the book?
pimples?
What does that mean?
What can people do to make
Don't like if they're
Dylan?
like read them right or yeah, if you read them right they'll be nice, but it doesn't always mean
Okay,
Okay,
so
it doesn't
because
mean by
dogs
what does it mean by don't
are
judge
really
something
athletic,
by
that
its
can happen.
cover?
But I'm thinking about like owners
don't
of
judge it.
owners of pimples.
Yeah, don't just look at the outside and assume that it is a certain
Train
way.
them
Okay?
to be
So if people look at
right?
pimples and they think they look mean, it
And
doesn't
that
mean
was one
that
of
they're
the
mean.
purpose fears.
Okay, just like
All they
people.
do was like
You look at somebody
They don't
and you think
always
they might be
look
a
at the dog.
dangerous scary person, but they're not really.
If you treat them right, the people.
It's because they're trying to it's called
Yeah.
if you do them right, if you do them right,
If there's anything else you need to add Or do you think all of the other ideas you have will be related to this? Too many gas.
Okay, anything else? Alyssa? Be quiet.
They come.
Okay, and I think we can put that with, you know, if any dog bites, they might just be trying to, all dogs.
Okay, so that's going to be like being violent or attacking others?
Okay, do you think we have some good reasons?
So that would be kind of attacking others? Yeah.
I think what we'll do is use these to write them, so you don't have to list all.
Some dogs,
Or you can list them on one hand.
they might feel threatened. They might feel threatened. Not yet.
Do you guys have most of your ideas?
Yeah.
All right, I think both groups have kind of come up with a list of ideas.
Perfect. So can we choose one person to present them from each group?
Sure.
I'd love to hear them. And
Do you want to pick somebody from your group?
Sure. Nice and loud and clear, Oval.
okay, so why don't those two people come up to in front of the camera if they don't mind and they're not too shy, so I can see them and hear them. I always have trouble hearing you guys.
Where we go? Oh, it's right here. Oh. Which side do we want first, or does it matter?
You choose.
Okay.
It's
So,
great.
okay, our first one is pit bulls are not dangerous. So,
Okay.
so that you can see yourself in the screen. Here, face this way. This
Back up a little bit, sweetie. Okay. All right, who are you?
They
okay,
pit
who
bull.
are you?
I'm Kristen Allison.
Hi.
Yeah. And our thing is that pit bulls are not dangerous.
Okay, how come? Can you give me some good reasons?
Yes.
Okay.
Firstly, dogs can only be dangerous if they are taught to, like they are giving up, like you host to them and you train them to fight.
Yes. Good.
Dogs bite because they may be defending themselves. If somebody's like trying to hurt them, then they might get mad.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yep.
Pit bulls look scary, but they are not usually mean. But most are not extremely. But most are usually not extremely dangerous, and like will bite ya.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, don't judge a book by its cover too, because that's exactly what it's like a pit bull. Because of course, because you hear a lot about bad experiences, but pit bulls are not actually that scary. Because usually they're trained. Because usually, of course, as I said earlier, most are given good homes and are trained perfectly and are not dangerous.
I think you want to say our last two facts here?
Yep, and
Ideas?
firstly, they can have big hearts, as we said on there, and they also are good protecting dogs because, of course, no matter what dog you get, they will protect you if you get hurt.
Well done. Okay, let's hear the other side. Pit bulls are dangerous.
Hi, I'm Obognion Crew,
Hi.
and our reason is pit bulls are dangerous. First reason, they can bite people, because that really hurts and that's like violence, and they can attack you, they can kill others, and they're very violent.
Okay.
They look intimidating.
You look intimidating, yes.
They be trained to be fighters, and they can ruin property.
Aha. Those are all good. Thank you very much. Okay, so your job for next week okay, this is important, is these are opinions, and you did a fantastic job writing down your ideas and opinions. But we have to support our opinions with facts. What are facts? What's a fact?
Something that can be proven.
That's correct. So where could we look to find information to support our opinions? Where could we look?
Oh,
Or some books.
internet, books.
Internet, books. We could talk to our librarian. I bet our teacher has some places we could look to. We could talk to, who came to talk to us?
ARL.
Yeah, I bet there's somebody at the ARL who knows about pit bulls. So in other words, I'd like you guys to do your research so that next time when we come and we have our information and our opinions, we can tell the facts. Okay? So the editorial writers are going to write up the two sides. Okay? But we need to give them facts to support their writing. How does that sound? Okay? So thank you very much for having us again.
Thank you.
Great work.
You guys,
We enjoyed the rest of the story.
yes, yes, yes.
We enjoyed the end of the story. That was good.
So glad.
Thank you.
Well, get ready for my next book, okay?
Yeah.
You know what the name of it is? You'll laugh. It's called Doxy the Doggone Dirty Digger. Doxy has a problem. Can you guess what it is?
Yay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys next week, okay?
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Marty.
How great is that?
Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah,
good.
it went really well. I talked to Jennifer beforehand just to make sure that she thought the kids could do that kind of. She said, yeah, sure. We do that with them all the time, so.
It was great. They
Yeah.
did such good work. You can turn the live broadcast off.